Welcome to another episode of Free Therapy with Season 2. I could not be more excited for me and for you. We are back. It is here. It is very clear, and I'm going to jump right into it because I cannot wait for my guest. I may not know you well, but it is going to be very swell. Caroline Snell, the go-getter, the mean, who never quitter. She's going to build her dam before you even pick out your first stick if she was a beaver, baby. That is right. Caroline Snell is here to teach the future generation and you today. So excited to have you on the program in every way.
Wow.
Caroline Snell, say it one more time. Third time's the charm. How are you doing? Thank you for coming on. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Joey. How long did you think about that swell and Snell rhyme? I'm pretty impressed.
The swell and Snell, I do have to say, that's just all improv.
Wow.
But the go-getter, no-quitter beaver dam line, which I kind of botched.
Wow. Can I get a plaque with that engraved, please, at your earliest convenience?
Thank you. We wrote a bit of a rep here for our introductions on Free Therapy, and I tried to do you, our illustrious guest, just the same as all our others.
Thank you so much. You did a great job. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Joey.
How the hell do you know my obnoxious ass? How do you know?
Honestly, I'm still unsure, still putting the pieces together. We both grew up in Ashburn, Virginia. Both grew up in Ashburn, Nova Reppin, went to the same high school. Did you go to Hillside Elementary or did you go to Sanders?
So we were just getting ready to dive into this before we got on. And yes, so I did go to Hillside. And I think we're even in the same class. So, really? I mean, I did not do my research, unfortunately. I did not do enough stalking.
You didn't pull up the yearbook.
Didn't pull up the yearbooks. I didn't go over to mom and dad's to go check it all out. But Miss Peterson? Third grade?
Yes.
Riley Wall? Yeah.
Yes.
Garrett Pohl, I believe.
I was just going to say Garrett Pohl. Okay, then we must have rode the bus together and hung out with those boys a lot.
Right, we did hang out with those boys,
That's where it's coming from. Okay, so I was wrong about Coulter Court kids, but I was right about Windmill Block.
Yes, exactly. So we're in the same vicinity, same bubble in the bubble, but never crossed paths.
Yeah, and literally never spoke in high school. Like, I don't think we ever said more than a word to one another. Even one word, I don't think we said to each other.
I don't think. And I have a couple reasons why. And, you know, really? There's a dichotomy, as you know, in high school. We talked a lot about this on the show, especially in the wonderful 1%er land that we grew up in. No offense to the great Cash Burden. You know I throw you a little shade from time to time. I love everybody there.
That's a long time ago.
But it is our bubble in a bubble, right? So with that being said, the opening question of the day is this. And I think after our text conversations or conversation before getting all this started, you'll be A-okay with the following question. I was a little worried about it. But basically the way I saw your group, and we've covered the show, plenty on the show, my reputation, what have you, in high school, enough. And we can get into that a little bit if you want to as well. I have no problem. But I saw you and your crew as the goody two-shoes, perfection.
Sure.
And I had to address, if I was going to address you, I'd have to give you a curtsy. I'd have to wear my top hat, have my top hat, tip my monocle. If you can tip a monocle, I don't know if that's a thing or not, Caroline. But obviously nobody's perfect, and that was a very disordered, ignorant high school view perspective from myself, right? But that's the way I saw it. And I was, by no means did I even know what a curtsy was at the time. So I wasn't going to do that. So that's the opening question is one, more of a kind of open format question, right? One, is that how, obviously you did not see me that way. We can get to that if you'd like to, maybe why we didn't interact. Two, I mean, do you get that perspective? Do you see that? What kind of, I just want your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely see the perspective. Yeah, and I've listened to some of your other episodes about like groups, especially in Nova area. I'm sure it's everywhere. But honestly, I just hate to hear that because, and I'm curious, you don't need to name names. I'm curious which group you're thinking of because I definitely had, I feel like a different group almost every year. And it took until my senior year until I found like my best friends who I'm still close with, bridesmaids in my wedding kind of thing. But I definitely went through that like experience of like, this is who I think I'm supposed to be hanging with.
Wait, stop. Are you engaged?
What? Yeah.
We didn't talk about it. Congrats! Let's do a dance with it at the beginning. Yay!
Thank you.
Go. What's going to be the last name? Who are we going to become?
Murray.
Love it.
Murray, yes.
Lucky man. Good for him.
Thank you. But anyway, like, I think I learned the hard way a couple different times of, like, true friends and not true friends. And you learn that as an adult too. But in high school, like you said, you're like, you glue yourself to those cliques and those appearances and what you think they think of you and what you think of them, et cetera, et cetera. So I never thought anything poorly of you, though. I just didn't think we were in the same crowd.
Right. Really didn't. No, and that's fine. And we really weren't, right? I mean, like, as I said on the show before, I mean, I was in the degenerate, lost kind of analyst crowd, and I saw you as the, like, we're going to the Ivy League school, and we're good to go, and, you know, I got the, again, don't take the offense, we got the trust set up and all that, right? And again, it's not a knock on you, and I'm sure that's incredibly incorrect, right? Knowing how human beings work as the older I grow. But I think a lot of that is derived from our main topic today, which we've touched a little bit on before on the show, Caroline, which you've probably heard. And thank you for listening. I appreciate that. Of course, I got you. Thank you. But no, is anxiety is our main topic today. And what derives a lot of this is anxiety. What derives those kind of groups, even starting in high school, even in, like you talked about, in elementary school, is that anxiety and how we channel that anxiety and where it comes from. It's as the choices we make, what we decide to wear in the morning, who we decide to talk to, what we decide to do in general, right? So that derives everything. And I think that caused a lot of my obnoxious behavior, caused a lot of that reputation, what I've talked a little bit about on the school. And my guess and my hypothesis with you would be the same, right? In terms of that anxiety of, oh, I think I need to go to this clique. And you mentioned, well, I bounce from group to group. And, well, I think I would look more favorably and be in the cool cat crowd, right? If I'm with these collected kids, or maybe, no, I need to be more like this. And, oh, the weed's not cool. I need to stay away from that. And we can do some secret drinking. That's really about it. But really, we're the smart studying kid, right? Like, that's kind of how it all rippled and went and had the decisions that you made. Did you kind of recognize that in high school? Did you see that? I mean, at the time, or you just saw it as kind of how you were guided, right?
Yeah, I didn't really think too much about it at the time. Right. I mean, I tried to follow my gut and what I, believed in at the time. But I will say I also didn't feel like that, like, natural or like that like chronic anxiety as a kid. That's more like an adult thing for me. What you're describing for me was more like just natural insecurities as a kid in high school. Whereas now, I mean, it's a lot more severe and a lot different looking than it was. Does that make sense? I didn't have that, like, oh my gosh type of thing in high school. I was just, what is everyone thinking about me? What should I wear? But it felt like that was kind of normal at that age.
That's an interesting framework to put it in, because as we get our owner of Four Corner Studio coming in here, and of course, go DM at Four Corner Studio right now to join the great podcast umbrella that is Free Therapy, that is Face of the Franchise, that is Five Holers, that is Bread and Butter, that is, of course, Hoopin' and Hollering, and join it right now to come close to us and record with us to join the journey that is Four Corners Radio. But no, I mean, I think that's interesting that you say that, Caroline. It really is. Is that, I mean, yeah, because for me, it was much more guided from an early age. Like I texted you or sent you on our outline on set I had general anxiety disorder. So I've always kind of dealt with it. And I've always it's just kind of always been there. Like just right now, I'm at a common 4. If I'm just brushing my teeth when I wake up in the morning, I'm at a 3. I'm always there. If I'm watching a TV show, I may be at a 7 or an 8, it just depends. But I think it's interesting. You say that it came into an adulthood, and I think, now even more so, it's becoming more common to become into adulthood, and as we grow older, especially in the kind of landscape and where we are as a society now. But I want to hold off on that right now because you mentioned the adulthood, and I think I deal with it more so when I was younger than I do in adulthood, because I found something that kind of helped me manage it. Caroline, that really kind of helped me put it in perspective while it's still there and I deal with it every single day. It's how you channel it and it's how you motivate it. And something that stuck with me when I think I was about 19 or 20 years old. And it was a quote from Bill Hader that he talked about, was said by him to Jeff Bridges. Bill Hader being a huge comedian, does Barry, Saturday Night Live, that was famous for his Stefan skit, all that. In case you're not a fan of Bill Hader, go check him out immediately. He's awesome. And then Jeff Bridges is, of course, from the Big Lebowski. He's the dude. He's a legend and dealt with it the whole life. What a lot of people don't know is Bill Hader, extreme case of anxiety. He said started like for you, Karen, and it was almost crippling, panic attacks. He couldn't get on SNL sometimes. And he said something that helped him kind of refocus it. And for me, it just clicked and sank in too. And I don't think it's going to be hurrah, easy. This is the ticket for everybody. But I think it's a good kind of guide to base on. In this quote, not an impressionist by any means, but bear with me, from Jeff Bridges was, it's your buddy, Bill. It's your buddy, man. Put your arm around, this is a terrible Jeff Bridges. Put your arm around it. Your anxiety is your friend. It means you care, right? It means you care. It is your buddy. It means you care. Use it to your advantage. But what does that anxiety in general mean to you? To get it kicked off, nice, general, easy to go to get it started. What's it mean to you?
Okay. Well, I want to start by saying I absolutely love that quote, but that quote for me is like, I didn't understand that until much further into my anxiety journey as well. And I think that's what part of makes, so I think of anxiety as any sort of overwhelming feeling that you feel like you can't.
Hold on, we're going to do this live on the show. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
Michael Shanuti, owner of Four Corner Studio. Fuck off. We are in the middle of a recording. You're ruining it. I love you. Goodbye.
Okay, I was friends with Shanuti in high school. I'm just going to say that.
Yes. I am aware of that. He didn't mention you by name, but you were that, if that's okay for me to say, you were that girl that and actually caused you to reach out to us. And I'm sorry, I know you're mid train of thought, but it's kind of caused you to reach out to us.
Right away. Yeah.
Big reason, I apologize. Big reason where we are now. But anyway, so what does that anxiety mean to you now, in general, and kind of where it all came from?
Yeah, so anxiety to me is just like that. Any sort of overwhelming feeling that you feel like you can't control. I mean, a lot of people would call it the feeling of being nervous. But for me, I've experienced it in like a lot of like physical elements, like those literal, like just tight knots in your stomach. Of course, the shortness of breath when you're having a panic attack. For me, I had never experienced it like all the way through school, college, everything, no issue with it. It was my first year out of college. I was a first year teacher. Obviously, I was going through a lot of stress, but when I first experienced it, I will never forget it. I was at a grocery store and I had a kind of stressful afternoon. Like I was running back and forth and blah, blah. I won't spare, like, you don't need the details, but I was at a grocery store.
Feel free. Feel free if you'd like.
Yeah. I was waiting in line at a grocery store and all of a sudden I just slowly felt like I couldn't breathe. And all I could think of is I have to get out of here. So I sped home. And I remember, like, thankfully, one of my best friends lived right next door to me in an apartment complex. She came over.
I may interject for a second because what you're talking about right now, Carolina, is you kind of went from that point, right, of just that general butterflies, the cliche butterflies everybody gets, that anybody will get. And that's just general kind of anxiety that you get just talking to your first crush or whatever it may be for the first time, or just, a big job interview, things like that, right? But this was kind of, again, took you over that mountain per se for a huge.
I felt like I went from absolutely no feelings of anxiety ever to a full-blown panic attack, like couldn't breathe. And if anyone's ever had a panic attack, the first one's always the worst because you don't know what to expect. You don't know how to handle it. You don't even understand what's happening. Like you think maybe you're having a heart attack. And it was just the worst thing ever. It was just the worst. And that was really my start of it. And for me, it was, random panic attacks. And then it turned into waking up in the morning and feeling anxious and just absolutely nothing would happen. And what has always bothered me is not anything against these people, but people will be like, well, what happened? You must be stressed at work. You're a teacher. It's stressful. Is there something going on in your relationship? Is it this? Is it that? Like, no, it's nothing. The trigger, the cause for me at least is I wake up. That's it. I literally wake up. I open my eyes. And I feel like shit. And my whole body is in this state of just truly feeling incapable of being myself or just going through day-to-day tasks is so hard when I feel like that, so crippling.
That's incredibly difficult by all means. And I mean, when you look at that too, and trying to identify yourself and get up to something that you feel, hey, I've always been able to do this, right? And I've always been to kind of carry myself out the door, and I've always been a very decisive and controlled person.
Right.
Why is this control going out the window now? Why is all this leaving? Did you see any? And again, I'm with you. It doesn't have to be that, is there something wrong in the relationship? Right. Is it, it's the first year of teaching? Is it all melting down? Right. Sometimes it can just kind of be a hint of, wow, life is just kind of hitting in this wave right now.
Yep.
Wow, I've never kind of seen this feeling before. I've never had this wave kind of come to my surface of my beach, right? And it's do often though, I think what we kind of slip is there is that kind of moment in that transition. Was there a transition of where you kind of saw, whoa? And you mentioned the grocery store happening. Do you know was there anything that kind of compelled that to motivate that, or it was just one thing out of nowhere? Because I want to get into this.
Yeah, I truly feel in hindsight that, it was kind of a stressful day. Yeah, I was a first year teacher. Like, times were tough, but like, it wasn't like I was in some crisis mode. It just truly was a little bit of a stressful day. And then something about a grocery store triggered me. And I went, almost a year without, like, trying to avoid a grocery store at all costs, because at the time there was something about like the crowds and like the waiting in the line and the busyness and making sure I get everything on my list. Like, some of those, that was definitely a trigger for me for a while. But in terms of where that came from, truly no idea. It really felt like it came out of thin air, and it bothered me. And it took me so many years. That was almost 5 years ago. And now my journey has definitely had its ups and downs. But going back to that quote, the thing that's helped me the most is just like, hey, Caroline, suck it up, buttercup. This is part of who you are now. Like, I tried to fight it for so long. Like, no, I don't have anxiety. I don't have that. I don't need medicine. I don't need therapy. I'm fine. Like, I am fine. I can handle this on my own. I'm strong. And then you just get to the point where it's like, why am I fighting this? Like, you just have to accept it. And that kind of goes along with that quote. Like, once you realize this is part of who I am, there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to handle it, man.
Hell yeah. Well said. Well said. And I'm very, very motivating is the impression I get from you as we're getting to know each other better here. I love that. That's exactly correct, right? You got to suck it up, buttercup. You really do. It's tough. And because when you talk about, well, all of a sudden, I go to the grocery store, and like I talked about, that kind of control slips away and stuff. I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it derived from. And I wanted to kind of get to this a little bit later, but I think you bringing this up is appropriate to bring this to the forefront now. And that is this a societal thing of where we currently are? Meaning the instant gratification, that that all the overwhelmingness that you can have anything at the snap of the fingers. Like, for instance, during this quarantine, I've been watching Billions, while also, and don't judge me for some of my terrible decisions, but I've also been gambling on, video games, sports video games, right? Because I have sports right now that generate and being deprived. And I could snap and click from there and there, while I also have my gin and tonic in my hand, and I also have my other activity that I got into in high school at the same time, right? So, and it's like, all that is right there when you used to have to churn butter for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I'm sorry for all my butter churners if I'm getting that process incorrect. But my point is, you have to work for something, right? So maybe it didn't derive as much anxiety. It wasn't instant gratification, and yes, you were kind of deciding where your next meal came from, and I'm talking way, at 1700s, way prehistoric, before we got a market kind of generation or society. Anyway, but it used to be you walk out, you go to your damn outhouse or whatever. You get what I'm going with here.
I hear you. I definitely think, I know you wanted to touch on more of that later, but I definitely see what you're saying. Sometimes, I guess my point is, like, you can feel anxious for no reason. You can have a panic attack for no reason. And I think that's a big misunderstanding about anxiety. A lot of people
Good point, Caroline.
A lot of people ask, what are you anxious about? What are you depressed about? And Yes, well, those are natural emotions that we talked about. Like most people feel happiness, sadness, anger, anxiety. Those are natural human emotions that everyone feels at some point. But that daunting anxiety, it's not natural. And from what I believe, it comes from your brain. And yes, there could be something that triggers it. Yes, of course,
It's
if I
that
had a big
perpetual kind of mental battle, that voice in your head you have with yourself. We talked a little bit about on the show, right? That going back and forth of
yeah.
like, oh, you're not good enough, or why did I decide to wear this hat today? Why didn't I wear the other?
Absolutely. And you could have different types of voices and concerns and insecurities in your head than mine. And there could be nothing that happens, but you just feel anxious. I mean, yeah, it might be spiked when you've got a big presentation the next day or you're meeting someone new or something. Like I was nervous, before this, to be honest, but that's more
Same here.
natural.
I'm nervous before I get on stage. I'm nervous. I mean, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Anxiety, but to have that like overwhelming feeling, like I can't breathe, my whole body is shaking, I need to shut down, or that is not natural, and there doesn't have to be a cause for that. And that, I think, that was hard for me to understand, especially because I went 20 years without, more than that, 22 years without feeling this way. And it's like, well, why do I feel this way? I'm so lucky. I have a job. I'm employed. I have a boyfriend. I have friends. I have my health. I'm financially taken care of. Like, why? And then you just end up hurting yourself because you're mad at yourself for feeling this way that your body created, and you can't prevent it.
No, you can't. And I want to go back to the quote again. I think you bring a lot of good points up there. It's a lot of times not something you want to control. And the reason I decided to bring up, is it a societal thing early, is exactly that. I think you bring up an excellent point, and something that does often get misconstrued. And it's that, that this has to be, oh, well, I'm getting, attacked from, I'm getting attacked from my job, or I'm getting, me and my boyfriend are arguing about taxes, or
Right.
or whatever the case may be, or I want to get a dog, my roommates don't want to get, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But it doesn't, it's not that. It's just kind of something in our brains. It's a kind of a default chemistry that just comes about, and it goes back to that quote. It's because we care. It's because we care. Now, I'll get to the crippling and the motivational side here in a moment of all that, right? But it's usually exactly like Jeff Bridges says. It's your buddy. You care, right? And just like any good buddy, how do you treat that buddy? How do you cultivate that relationship, and how do you kind of go about maintaining that anxiety? I mean, there's a lot of healthy ways to go about it, and there's a lot of unhealthy ways to go about it. I mean, like, I'll use the example I had, because when I was in high school, right, I chose to act. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know really who I was. And I thought, okay, I kind of have this avenue where people think I'm funny. If I just take that,
run with it, yeah,
it will be okay. And what that was just pure anxiety. That was pure just driven anxiety and a lot of candy. Like that's all it really was. I mean, so it's kind of, I think, the thing that I didn't figure out in high school and in my earlier years that I figured out in adulthood is how you channel that. And it's more than just kind of using that easy quote and that ticket. You kind of talked about, and you kind of tapped into it a little bit. What do you do now? I mean, you seem like you kind of come, and if you don't mind me asking, how long ago was that grocery store incident? And how often has it occurred kind of since with things like that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, you're fine. That was almost 5 years ago. And it definitely has been a journey since then. It started with like once in a while panic attacks, then it turned into like full-blown anxiety. And then like what I found happening to my body is almost like my body would be so anxious for so long, it would be like up here, and then my body would respond and like get super depressed because it was almost like it was just too exhausted. And I don't know if you've ever gone through that, but then
100%.
I mainly suffer from anxiety, but then I'll get what I call in my brain anxiety induced depression. And then I'm so depressed and can't even, like, anxiety, I'm thinking, running. And then I get so depressed, I can't think, I can't get out of bed, I don't want to do anything. And so I've been battling with that for years. And actually just a couple
That
months
crippling
ago.
anxiety will kind of coexist with depression. They're hand in hand. They're best buds.
Exactly. They can definitely, bounce off each other, and it's honestly just sucks. It sucks.
I don't know if you've ever seen Big Mouth, but yeah, depression kitty will definitely go with that anxiety all day long.
Definitely.
And I mean, it's scary. It's scary as hell, and it's kind of tough to know how to navigate it with that. And I know I'll let you get back to it in a second, but something else that I wanted to bring up and something that I wanted to mention is that because what you said I think is very valuable for us, right? And I also want to kind of stand it by the quote. What you said is, well, I didn't feel this anxiety until I was about 22, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you've learned and how to battle it and deal with it since. But and I mentioned with the quote, well, it means you care, right? And it's not saying that you didn't care prior to that, right?
Right.
It's not to say that you didn't care prior to that, but to our conversation at the beginning, it was just kind of like you were taking the cultivated steps at the time, right?
Right.
But once you hit 22, you graduated college, boom, here's Caroline Snell's real life, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't think it's a coincidence it happened that first year, being, financially independent, working on my own, I think that's a really stressful time for a lot of people. But we're talking about, like, make sure that you care. Like, to me, it's care about your body. This is coming from your brain. Your brain's part of your body. One of the best things I ever heard that helped me was, if you were a diabetic, would you not take insulin? And it's like,
I love that.
Put it that way. Or if you had strep throat.
That's on the level of the Jeff Bridges quote there. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just when you put it in different terms like that, and this kind of goes on with, I know what we're leading into is just that stigma of, like, oh, you're depressed, oh, you're anxious, and people go, oh, have you tried exercising? Go take a run, go eat healthy, don't drink caffeine. And I'm not discrediting those tips. Are good tips for all people.
If it works for you, it works for you.
Exactly. But when you have something serious that comes from your brain, I'm sorry. I work out most days. That has nothing to do with my anxiety. I promise you. It doesn't help it. It doesn't hurt it. But it
you don't look like the epitome of health at all. No way.
Thanks.
Definitely look like I could use that. You look. I don't know if you know the at-home workouts YouTubers like Sydney Cummings and Heather Robinson.
All about
Looks
the
like you've been running their videos a little bit. Definitely could use a tip.
Yeah, they're the best. But
you do know I'm in love with Sydney. I like to pretend we're hanging out when we do, and like she motivates me. She said we're hanging out, so we are.
She knows you. Like, you're gonna text her in a couple minutes after this.
Like, we both crushed it, girl. Way to go. Exactly.
But yeah, when I heard that, like, if you were diabetic, would you not take insulin? That just really opened my eyes. Like, you know what? This is just part of who I am, how I was built, and I got to take care of myself because it's not going away. Like, at this point, we're 5 years deep. It's not going away. There's no running or eating or whatevering that I can do to make it go away. So, I know it's not for everyone, but I'm definitely on medication. I definitely see a therapist regularly. And it's definitely changed my life. I have bad days all the time. Like, actually yesterday I had a terrible day and was super anxious and then felt super depressed. And as I laid in bed, I was like, wow, I'm getting on this call tomorrow and I'm supposed to be talking about how to handle this. And I need to start practicing what I preach. And I just told myself, Caroline, it's okay that you feel this way. This is part of who you are. You're going to get through it like you always have. And sometimes you just got to do things for yourself.
That's beautifully said. That really is. I mean, that it really is. I mean, all seriousness, because I mean, I think a lot of people get mixed up and we've talked a little bit about this on the show before, of the kind of just drink and just suck it back and take it, right? Just kind of just take what you get and that's it. Right? Yeah. Don't make excuses about it. Well, you can knock it off by working out.
Harder. You can
overdo work harder.
Yeah.
You obviously, you don't care enough, right? You're not giving them be more creative. That's not the person I know, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, one, do you really know that person that you're saying that to? Two, you don't. Only that person truly knows themselves, okay? Right. So let them decide what they're going to do. And yes, this is called free therapy, Caroline, but by no means am I a licensed therapist.
Exactly.
And the amount of things that people can do and these therapists that can't, as a licensed therapist that can actually help you is immense. Is by all means absolutely immense, and going to see them can help you kind of guide that, and also reminding yourself kind of those constant mantras of reminding yourself, hey, like you said, Caroline, practice what you preach. Something I say to myself all the time, because I suffer, we've talked about this on the show with Michael, is, I suffer from overthinking all the time. It's something that's definitely descriptive. That's hand in hand with anxiety as well, right?
100%.
And,
yes.
and something I say to myself, I even said before this podcast, I say it before every podcast, I say it before I get on stage, don't overthink, just create.
Right. Love that. Yep.
And
when you overthink, it can hurt not only yourself, but your relationships. And I don't just mean romantic relationships, but with your friends and with your family members and with your significant others. Some things that you do impact yourself, but they can also impact others. And that's why you really have to recognize them and get them in line, because you're going to lose people and you're going to lose relationships and you're going to lose part of who you are if you can't get it together. In a healthy way, you get it together.
100%. And I want to touch on what we're creeping at. And we've kind of put our toes in the water a little bit, but let's really get in the deep side of the pool now. And as you can see, I switched over to my Truly at this point.
I'm still on my G&T. Cheers.
Yes, but no, is that crippling anxiety that can ruin those relationships, that can, you could have easily taken that anxiety, right, that you had at the grocery store that day, and gone, I'm just using this as an example, gone home and just given your current fiance just a hell of a time, right? And thrown him out and absolutely made him decide, well, maybe I won't, again, I won't pop the hypothetical, I won't pop that question anymore. And hey, you could have gone and, told the shut the fuck up, brat, to one of your kids. I know you would never say in your right mind. I know you were way too nice to say that
here a lot.
Yeah, you would never voice it out loud. You would let your inner Larry David come out. I don't know if you're a Curb fan or not. But anyway, we are on this show. Yeah. Finally, we got a lot of things in common. I love that. But I mean, you can easily let that cripple you. You can easily let it deter your whole entire day. And I think it sounds like when you first experienced it, it was kind of all new and trying to decide how to do that. But I think what's so great about your story is you'll learn how to kind of put that all together. Because I still have bad days all the time too. And I've talked about it on this show. I talked about it on a show where I talked about some of my personal relationships, where that overthinking and that anxiety kind of got into it. And I woke up in the morning and I didn't want to get out of bed and I wasn't myself anymore. And I had let that crippling anxiety take over and bunk in with that me and the depression kitty, right?
Yep. Crippling is just the best word to describe it when it's so bad. I mean, about a month or two ago, it was the worst it's ever been for me. And I literally couldn't go to work, which pretty much never happens. I always go to work unless I have the flu.
Again, the go-getter, no quitter.
Yep. Couldn't go to work.
So swell, Caroline Snell.
Exactly.
We're going to have to think something for Murphy, aren't we?
What's that?
We're going to have to think of something for Murphy. It was Murphy, right?
Murphy. Oh, Murray. But it's funny. My dog's name is Murphy. And he's laying in the corner over there. So I was like, how did you know my dog's name?
What up, Murphy?
Yeah. But yeah, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't go to work. And I was like a zombie. And my fiance literally had to pick me up, put me in the car, and take me to my parents' house. And I was out of work for a week. And
by the way, love him for that. Love him. That's a winner right there. Love him for that.
I know is get a good support system. If you suffer from this, you cannot go through it alone. You're not designed to go through it alone. You need someone that understands you and is there for you. But it's hard for them. And anyway, that's a whole other topic. But he picked me up, put me in the car. We drove to my parents' house. And they just gave me all the love I needed. And not that I wasn't receiving love, but that was 2 months ago, and I'm medicated and I go to therapy, and I was at a point so low that I had never been in my whole life. And I just thought to myself, I never thought this could happen to me. I felt like I was dying. It was truly terrible. But then you know what? I went back to the doctor, and it turns out I really needed to change my medication, and now I feel great. But
Awesome.
it happens. Like you can be up here for a really long time, but you can get back down here, and it just sucks, honestly. I feel for everyone that goes through this, and I feel for people that, you know, are so close to people that go through this, and people that don't understand it but want to, and it's hard for everyone, really.
So, I mean, first of all, let me thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, that's I know that's incredibly difficult, and I really do appreciate that, because I mean, I've gone through a lot of the similar things, and I think a lot of people listening right now can kind of learn and relate to that for sure, because there's that I like to kind of think of it as the metaphorical weight you add, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning, when you're in that, when your boyfriend had to pick your now fiance had to pick you up. Or I guess it was 2 months ago. So fiance still had to pick you up out of bed. I mean, it metaphorically like 400 pounds, right? This is my 400-pound life. Literally, exactly. You could not physically get out of bed. You had to have somebody carry you. You had to have complete reconstruction. And sometimes I think that's another very important point to address, right? Is because, like we said, going back to our kind of anchor of this whole podcast is, you know, taking care of that buddy. And sometimes when you kind of just it can quickly escape, and you don't take care of that buddy, you don't keep it fresh, you don't, you kind of just let that metaphorical weight grow and grow, which it can happen, again, like we talked about, out of our control sometimes, right? And you do need that person in your life to kind of help you pick up that weight and help you tear it off again. Right. And I think that's more critical than anything. And it's about, and sometimes that can be impossible to have. So it doesn't have to be a close friend either. If you are somebody that's alone, you are somebody that, you know, lives by themselves, somebody that is suffering, there are sources out there for you too. Remember that. There are people that you can call. It's call 911. There's suicide hotlines. There is literally just call a buddy. There are things, especially right now in this weird, boring Black Mirror episode we're currently in, is that, you know, there are literally people you can Skype with right now, you can Zoom with right now, and just to make you feel comfortable, to make you feel better, to ease that anxiety. But if you try to tackle it alone,
you can't.
The crippling side of anxiety is going to be the victor every time.
You can't. And I actually had a little bit of a time with a friend of mine who also suffers from anxiety, and we were calling one another each other's sponsor, kind of like how alcoholics have a sponsor. And I was like, why doesn't this exist for anxiety and depression? So it's like, you know,
I love that
person, when you feel like you're about to take a drink for an alcoholic, or that person that's anxious, you feel like you're about to explode on someone, you can call that person or text that person and be like, I'm having a terrible day. And like, we would just send each other, like, you know, corny inspirational texts in the morning and stuff like that. But
that's great.
I think it should exist more for, you know, people
more like cheesy and corny, the better in my book, Caroline. Let me tell you what.
What's that?
More cheesy and corny, better in my book.
Yes,
let me tell you what.
Better, yes.
Cheesy and corn are both comfort foods for a reason, right? Cheese and corn.
Well said. But yeah, we're not built to go through it alone. And the hardest part is, even when you're not alone, you feel so isolated during these moments of anxiety and depression. You feel alone. Even physically, you look at someone that's next to you that loves you and is going to support you, but you just feel like nobody gets it.
100%. I think that can often be the hardest thing. So what I think one of the best things to do is just trying to like tell that to as many people as possible. And then next thing you'll know, you'll get a just put your arm around your buddy quote,
exactly.
Right? And it will maybe put you into play. It can be just as simple as that sometimes, right? Especially in, again, like I already mentioned, these weird apocalyptic times we're in right now. I mean, where I think everybody's getting a little bit of a hint of that. For a lot of people, the first time in there.
Mm-hmm. It's a terrible time for people with anxiety and depression.
Yeah, the fun times never stop. Exactly.
It never stops.
It's literally like we're mainlining IBing at this point, that kind of stuff. And that's why I thought it was so important to kind of have this episode, because there are a lot of people such as yourself when you turn 22 that are dealing with this for the first time now.
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah, some people are feeling this for the first time now, and I love that you have this podcast because it's, hey, people out there, a lot of people want to keep it to themselves and experience it and don't tell people, but here we are saying this happens, you're not alone, and you're going to make it.
Absolutely, and I think it's so important too, and then that's why I love doing this show. And that's why I need to stop dragging my feet in the mud and make more episodes for sure.
I love it so much. I'm here for it. It's also it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Didn't know if you knew that.
I did not even know that, and I should know that.
Maybe you should do extra episodes for the month of May. I just put you on the spot.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think you're absolutely right. And you're, yeah, I'm very, very happy I had you on this show. Very, very happy I had a guest on the show because I think it's very important too right now, again, that we've never had, because almost every episode we have, Caroline can address anxiety, right? Yeah. If you go back and listen, anxiety, but I thought it was very important to do the whole entire episode.
Absolutely.
Two, I thought it was very important to do with someone that I didn't know very well because it would cause anxiety. I did that intentionally, so know that now that we're into it and we're in the deep waters now. But I think you hit it and said it beautifully. It's really right now a time of where it's so crucially important to talk to anybody. And yes, there's going to be some people you talk to where like, oh, man, I hope the quarantine's longer so I don't have to talk to this person ever again. I remember I did. But then there's also this person that's going to kind of, that kind of clicks and like, thank God I did speak to this person. And hopefully this show will inspire somebody to go out there and talk to somebody,
absolutely,
talk to a friend, talk to a professional, whatever it may be, to be more open with their roommate, anything. It doesn't matter who, be more open with their significant other. And that's really the reason I do this. And that's my only hope,
I love it. I think you're doing a great thing. That's why I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Now, I want to kind of touch as we get into the home stretch here a little bit is we've talked about a little bit. We've talked about, some mantras that we can get over with this crippling anxiety, talk to some friends. Is there anything else that you kind of do to get away from this anxiety? Is there maybe, whether it's kind of like a nice escape? Like for me right now, I already mentioned, I'll mention it again right now. For me, it's Billions. I love that show to death. Before that, it was Money Heist, this Spanish soap opera show that's fantastic.
Right.
For me, obviously, it's television and pot. So is a good, nice escape. I think that's another kind of good form. But what kind of is it for you that also helps besides, talking, kind of having those mantras, speaking to your therapist, kind of reminding yourself of, keeping it all together, suck it up, buttercup. Is there any kind of other things that you do or any other ways that you approach tackling
it's hard.
anxiety?
I think it really depends on the day and how severe it is. Like, for example, yesterday I was feeling like crap and no one judged me during the quarantine, but there was a social gathering happening with a bunch of my friends. I know, but it was an outdoor event. It was going to be fine, and we're no longer on the stay-at-home order. So anyway, sometimes I was like, yeah, that would be good for me to like go and be social.
Technically, it's still the 15th, but I won't argue with you any further.
Well, I know. I'm just saying. Ours lifted on Monday, so.
Yeah, that's fair. That is right. You're in North Carolina. I apologize. I'm in. That's right.
It was lifted on Monday, so we were not breaking any laws for all of you listening.
Couple of drinks in. That's pack out away from me for a second, but continue.
Yes. So it's legal, but anyway, I kind of at this point could recognize, no, I can't go to one of these events right now. I actually just need to have a night to myself. I need to not be guilty about it. I poured a glass of wine, made myself a cheese plate, watched Grey's Anatomy. It was just great. Other times it's like, no, you need to get up and you need to go see a friend or go on a bike ride or whatever it may be. But what I want to put out there to people listening, I think we mentioned before, like, just because it works for someone doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And Like if you are feeling anxious and you take a yoga class and you don't feel better afterwards, like don't feel bad about yourself because you kind of have to take time to figure out what will work.
You weren't yogiing right.
What's that?
You weren't yogiing right. May not be for you. May not be for you.
But yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to figure out what works for you and like the condition that you're in that day. And unfortunately, it's just time. At least for me, it just has taken time to figure out what those things are. I have a dog, and if you have the means to get a dog, what's that?
Murphy,
yeah, he's sleeping
earlier,
right now. Yeah, he's the best. He's my emotional support animal. So I'd highly recommend dog to anyone. I know that's not in everyone's means, but like
another great option,
yeah, just cuddling with him. And I don't know. I'm not answering this question very well because sometimes I just don't feel like I have anxiety.
There's that anxiety pouring out a little bit right now. No, not at all. Like that's right. I mean, whatever the options may be, I think that's a great option. I've been dying for a dog myself because my parents got a dog at home, and every time I go over there, I get so jealous that I can't bring Ginger back to my house. It drives me insane. But I think that's a great example. Yeah, riding your bike, getting some of that anxiety out.
Right.
Whatever works for you. Watching Grey's Anatomy. Maybe not watching the episode where Grey sticks her hand in that lady's body so the bomb doesn't go off.
The bomb doesn't go off. I'm so proud of you for doing that. Good job.
My boss literally used that as a motivator for me in my job, and that is why I left 9 to 5s. But anyway, great reference, and that episode sounds amazing, but just not the best motive.
Not my life.
Yeah, not my life. When you're trying to motivate me to sell IT product, don't use a reference of putting my hand in a lady for a bomb.
That's hilarious. One other tip I did come up with is because I know I'm very seasonally oriented, so seasonal depression has always been a thing for me.
Sure.
So getting out in the sun whenever you can, and I also bought a sun lamp recently. So when it was like still really cold and really rainy, which it probably still is there for y'all because you live in Northern Virginia. It sucks. It's been like 90 degrees here
all week. It's just been 90 degrees.
Yeah. Like it is at 9 a.m. Like it's 90 degrees and I'm sweating. Yeah.
I was wondering why you're looking a little tan, and I'm as pale as a
these
country.
freckles are coming in hot with a little sunburn.
I'm as pale as a country boy's tan lines. I'll tell you right now.
But if you don't have access to natural sun, there's a bunch of sun lamps that you can buy on Amazon. And I don't know if it's a placebo effect. I know there's like not any medical research to support them, but it helps me. It gives me energy in the mornings. I highly recommend those too.
Yeah, no, I mean, find your outlet, essentially, right?
Exactly.
Find your outlet. I think that one of the important things, and I want to get to our final question here in a moment, but I think that the most important thing here to do is, one, channel that anxiety as a motivator, right?
Right.
I think finding ways to channel that anxiety as a motivator, not letting that cripple or that metaphorical weight of anxiety kind of build up in you. So depression kitty joins you in your bed, right? Rather, again, use those mantras, use it's my buddy, use the, talking to somebody. You definitely use a therapist. I am free for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. If that helps, go ahead and do that as well. That does wonders for lots of friends and my new friend Caroline here as well. So, I mean, find your outlet. And of course, again, your relaxation thing too. I mean, whatever that may be. For me, it's smoking a J and watching a good TV show or getting a good workout with Sydney, right? For you, it's maybe having a glass of wine and watching the impossible medical, quantity that Gray's going to get out this week, or whoever is treated her horribly, whatever ex is treating her horribly, or whatever the case is. I only watched a little of my parents.
That's the best.
But
your life will always seem better after watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yes,
not that bad.
Yeah, at least my life's not that bad. At least I don't have that much drama. I don't know about billions. You might feel like you're watching a long, boring chess match after a while, but I love it. But
I love it. I actually last night restarted it. Like I watched it all the way through 3 times already.
You and my mom would get along very well. But
I just can't stop. It's my comfort zone.
well, that's like me and Psych. Psych is another example of an anxiety outlet for me. I don't know if you ever heard of this TV show, Psych.
No.
Check it out. I think you would honestly love it. It's another
Okay.
formulaic type of show. There's
Okay.
basically like these two detectives that are psychic, and the Mentalist totally copied off them, if you've heard of the Mentalist. And essentially, they are just goofy. It's fun. It's something you can watch with you and the fiance and the future kids way down the line. Don't let me give you anxiety right now. But no, that's something that I'll rewatch again and again.
Love it. What, is it on Netflix or Hulu or what?
This is it. So it's now. I think you can stream it on Amazon Prime now.
Okay, I got that. All right, cool.
Look it up.
I'm watching it. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah, good. You'll love it. It's amazing. You'll become a psycho. It's incredible. It had 7 seasons of the run. It has one movie out, and they're filming the second movie. So there's like a whole cult fandom.
Oh wow, I'm so here for it. I can't wait. Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear for the review. But
I'll let you know.
way back to On the Rails for the moment is
reel it
in. Pull it on in, and that is, I mean, again, finding that outlet, talking to somebody, finding your mantras to get rid of that crippling anxiety and turn it into motivating anxiety that will absolutely take you to those next chapters in a positive light. Because what does that anxiety do? For you, Caroline, at the end, it's going to take you into the love of your life, right? It's going to take you, taking you to a career you love. And I don't know what your goals and ambitions with the teaching is. If you want to go, if it's principal, I'm going to mess up the last name again because I keep thinking Murphy.
Murray.
So you realize that's confusing though, right? You have a dog that's Murphy, and then your future husband's last name is Murray. But
I thought Murray was cute.
It's adorable, and I love it. Even your life, the people in your life have ambiance. That's fantastic. But no, I mean, I think that's the most important thing here, guys. Yeah. Is finding your outlets, talking to those people, and finding your mantras. But I mean, the question I kind of want to end with, and then we can get our conclusions and final thoughts. And I brought it to the forefront. But I think, again, I've left it at the end for a reason. I think it's an appropriate question now because, yes, there is that anxiety that stems, just for no reason, that just kind of comes out like we discussed, and something you just kind of have to learn and battle, and that's just part of us as human beings. But is there more? Do you think it's more consistent now and this kind of fast pace, we can have whatever the hell we want kind of error because no one was Zooming during the Black Plague? Caroline.
Right.
So, and what do you think? Do you think this is, do you think it's always been there? I mean, I mentioned earlier, right? Back when you were a hunter-gatherers and you're worrying about your next meal to meal. Yes, there's probably anxiety. Was it the same type of anxiety we face? No loaded question here at the end, but if you could unpack for me.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's interesting how you talked about like the instant gratification and how that could be causing anxiety. I definitely agree with you, but that's not what comes to my mind right away. I think that people have always experienced anxiety. I think the levels will always vary from person to person, so that's really tough to say. But I do think that there's a lot more pressure in our society today in terms of like you need to be working harder, you need to make it to the top, and then add on top of all of that social media. Well, look what I'm doing, look what I'm wearing, look where I'm traveling, look who I'm with, look what my wedding was like, look what my new house looks like. And people are feeling like crap about themselves, and then they get on Instagram and see how great everyone is doing, even though those people are suffering just as much as we are. But we have this new outlet where we can put on this facade to the world of how great we are. And think about it, we don't put up pictures of panic attacks and videos. I don't put it on my Instagram story when I'm laying in bed sick with depression. Like, that's just not what we do. But I think that is a huge contributor to how everyone feels today. But I also think, there's a stigma. I think there's always been a stigma. And I think just like a lot of other hot topics these days are starting to come out and be a lot more accepted. I think anxiety and all of mental health really, I think, falls in that category where people are feeling more comfortable to ask for help or to share their stories because more people are accepting.
Finally, and we're just not sticking people in quote unquote loony bins, as we describe it, which is self-deprecating in itself. And we're not putting it as or God forbid, way back, as you know, I can get a little dark sometimes if you listen to the show, way back in, the 1300s or early prehistoric or medieval times, whatever the hell you want to call it, where you just unfortunately just off the baby if you knew it had mental retardation or something. I mean, it was awful, right? Obviously, it's come way long since then. And progressed in human society, but finally, I think now even more so in 2019 and 2020, despite who may held the helm, the United States is getting a lot better, and just us as a world, as a culture, is getting a lot better at talking about these issues and bringing these at a forefront, that like in the likes which we never have before. And I think that's fantastic to see. I mean, you see a lot of these things popping up of just, apps for free therapy, or for not free therapy, maybe podcasts for free therapy, but apps for professional therapy, and I mean, exactly. And so that, I think that in itself is a huge progress, and something that's really crucial. And I think the one of the points that you hit that I wanted to touch as well is that perfect life and that perfect society that you kind of paint, right? Is that, there's a I think I'm assuming, and I may be wrong, we both graduated with this person. I won't say their name out loud, but they posted this on Instagram, the real versus the non-real, and it was like her kids. She has twins. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
She has twins, and they posted this picture, and then she also posted on the following next picture of, here's what's actually going, and they were complaining about her quarantine walk the whole entire time. I think that was beautiful what she did. Yeah. And reason being is because it's exactly that. You get these influencers, right, that have this perfect picture and this perfect house with that have 1 million followers.
It's like, who has money to buy these clothes? Like,
they rented, they put the clothes on layaway. They rented the house for the hour. They hired the photographer, and the picture took 4 hours, right? So I think you're exactly right. There's this pressure and this, and you hit the nail on the head better. That's kind of where I was going with all that, right? But not saying it as eloquently as yourself. But is it kind of, you have all this pressure that keeps mounting and mounting for this unattainable perfection that just isn't true. We're all human. We all have sweat that comes out of our pits, shit that comes out of our ass, to get grotesque, and snot that comes out of our nose at the end of the day, right? So I think it's insane that we try to put ourselves on these pedestals that's just not normal or natural to try and obtain.
It's not. And now with social media, we have the ability to see what people are doing live time. So like an Instagram story, for example, let's say you're having a terrible day, you're depressed in bed, and you get on story and you say, oh, so-and-so is having a party in her backyard. So-and-so is at the beach, I don't know, in her perfect bikini, like. And now you see it all in live time, and you can compare directly in that moment. Where am I? What am I doing? How do I feel? And guess what? All these people are doing something else in this moment and feel a different way in this moment. And that is just like a punch in the gut, honestly.
It perpetuates it more, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point of bringing all that up is right when you're a hunter gatherer worrying about your next meal, you're also worrying about this comedian has 1,000 likes. I will never get to that point. I'm useless. I'm not funny at all. Or, this person that I went to high school with has the 6-figure job, and here I am, pennies on the dollar, telling jokes to 10 people on a stage, right? I hear it. Yep. So it perpetuates it more, and I think that's something we have to. It goes back to that mantra, right? Yes, there's always been anxiety. Like I said, it is more consistent now in a sense because there's more of a focus on it and there's more tools to not overuse this word, but perpetuate it. So what you have to consistently remind yourself of is, again, going back to that kind of mantra and those outlets and those people that you need to talk about that we discussed, and saying, okay, she may be gorgeous, and that guy next to her may have that 6-figure job, and they may have 100,000 likes, and they may have that mansion in the background with that perfect picture of the sunset that hit at the perfect time.
Right, of course.
It took 6 hours. They're $100,000. They're $20,000 in credit card debt. They, again, like I said, they rented that house. That's actually their parents' house.
Yeah.
You never know the situation. Maybe that might not be the specific scenario. Don't get too specific, people. But you know what I'm saying. Remind yourself that there's more to that story, right? That's not the full picture. That you have all the time in the world to make the perfect Instagram post.
Right. And it goes back to like knowing yourself. If you get off Instagram every time and feel like shit, then delete Instagram. Or, just know yourself. And if that is a trigger for you, then you have to remove it. Like, that's just that.
Period. Yeah, I think if it's toxic and it's too much on you, just let it go. I mean, I didn't have it before the comedy stuff because I just thought it was a waste of time, and I kind of have to have it. And even with the comedy stuff, I'm still lazy in my efforts of it because I just don't think it's. I think it just perpetuates toxic things. And it's just unnecessary. Yep. In my personal opinion, yes, it's great to keep up with people, all that great stuff.
Yeah. There's pros and cons, there are, but you just have to be smart about it and be aware that it's doing that to you, even if you don't realize it. It's doing it to you.
I would have never been on this show if it wasn't for social media stuff, right?
There you go.
But again, with all that, you just have to remind yourself. You have to know in yourself, and it just goes back to what I'm now going to call kind of those 4 tools to help you motivate your anxiety, and that's again outlet, friendship. I got a roommate coming down here. Hey, buddy. Outlet, friendship, mantras, and just again keeping that buddy and monitoring that relationship. Exactly. So I think those 4 things are the most important things. So I mean, despite what it may be, despite what kind of anxiety tries to throw your way, and what perpetuates it. Remember, one more time, outlets, mantra, buddy, and just something, knowing yourself are the 4 most important things.
Yep, I'm adding on self-care to that one. I'm going to add a 5th and say self-care, because if you start to feel yourself getting like, oh, I'm about to have an anxious meltdown tomorrow. I've been working so hard the past 4 days, working 12-hour days. Take a mental health day or go do something for yourself before it gets to the point where it's bad. And I think that comes with, again, knowing yourself, but like taking an actual action to take care of yourself for no other reason but for you, even before you hit that stage of panic attack, mental breakdown, in bed for days. Just take care of yourself.
I think that sums it up all well. We'll go ahead and add that 5th one is kind of the coach that brings it all together, the glue that brings it all together. Caroline, this has been absolutely excellent. Way better than I expected. Not that I expected to be poorly, but I mean, it was a beautiful episode. I almost teared up a little bit. It sometimes happens on this show, so I really appreciate you. No, seriously, I really appreciate you sharing everything you did, coming on this show, making a new friend. Cheers to that again.
Cheers. Thank you for having me. Mental health is really important to me, so I'm here for it. Spread the word. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, new friend.
Thank you, new friend. I appreciate that, and I think that is most important. Is at least if this can help you guys in any way, just a little bit. I couldn't be more happy for that. So we will keep episodes coming at you, as I've just been made aware. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, so take advantage and take care of your mental health, especially right now when you need it most. Call a friend, call a buddy, smoke some weed, watch some Grey's Anatomy, whatever the hell you like to do, go and do it. With that being said, final announcements. We will be back next week with another good buddy of mine. Not a new buddy, an old buddy, but it's always good making new buddies. And that will be talking about resilience and persevering through traumatic events. So I'm very excited about that episode. But finally, with that being said, if you haven't already, the show is over. So you know what you got to do. Go DM at the Four Corners Radio right now to join the wonderful umbrella that, of course, is free therapy, hooping and hollering, 5-holers, bread and butter, last nights, guys. I got them all this time. I know I missed some of you guys before. I apologize. Last nights, guys, and of course, face of the franchise. Go join that incredible umbrella right now. All you got to do, again, DM at the Four Corners Radio. Is that easy? We'll make it happen, Captain. Caroline, Snell, future Caroline, Murray, thank you.
Crushed it, Joey.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming on. We will absolutely stay in touch. Let me know what you think of Psych. I will go ahead. Maybe I'll check out some episodes of Grey's Anatomy. It's been an absolute blast. And remember, once again, why pay $100 for free therapy when you get Lil Joe for free every Wednesday? Although if you do like therapy with this episode, go ahead and get professional help every Wednesday with Lil Joe for free. Thank you very much. We out.
Bye.
Bye. And